My wife, Sherry, thought I didn't know about her plans. She thought I was stupid, or at least unaware of her growing affair with her co-worker, Todd. She believed that I would let her horn me in, and that I would accept that she would have him to continue to be her husband. She had something else to do. She didn't realize that I had suspected her for a long time. I had noticed changes, clear signs of infidelity, things like working late more often, sexual upgrades to her closet, more aggressive sex, and a loss of interest in all the things we used to care about. I tried to talk to her about it several times, but each time my concerns went unheeded. Sherry, of course, denied that anything was wrong. She said it was just my insecurity and possessiveness working overtime, so I had no choice but to hire a private investigator. I refused to remain blind to the truth. I would never tolerate my wife cheating on me. I made that clear from the very beginning of our relationship and repeated it many times during the 10 years of our marriage. So, with mixed feelings, I sat in private investigator Jake Sloan's office and listened to his report. I was relieved when he made it clear that Sherry had not cheated. However, that relief was short-lived when he added the word, "for now." As he explained, my wife was having an affair. It just hadn't gotten to anything sexual, but it was only a matter of time. Apparently, Sherry and Todd were what they called working spouses. I hated that term. Sherry had only one spouse, me. Some might find that expression cute and harmless, but to me it meant that she was having an intimate relationship with someone else. Well, as it turns out, she was. According to the PI's report, Sherry and Todd had lunch together every day, just the two of them. They held hands and sat next to each other. He provided numerous photos of them hugging, sometimes even kissing. I was infuriated by what I saw and wanted to strangle that smug jerk, Todd. In addition to lunches, the lovers often worked late together, even though there was no good reason for it. It was as if they wanted to avoid going home to their respective spouses and siphon off as much us time as possible from each day. The detective told me that he was able to trace Sherry's emails and messages. I knew this was completely illegal, and I could never use it in a divorce. In our state, divorce for adultery was possible, but difficult. No-fault divorces were much easier, and I didn't need to use evidence for that anyway. I just wanted it for my own purposes. Sloan refused to give me copies of the actual messages. He wouldn't even let me see them. Instead, he offered me a summary of what they contained. He assured me that my wife had never spoken disparagingly of me. Several times, Todd tried to disparage me, but Sherry wouldn't let him. I guess it could have been worse. Emails and texts confirmed their romantic relationship, although neither of them professed love. Their conversations were very sexual. As I sat in his office pondering my next steps, Sloan gave me the worst news. Todd's wife was going out of town for 3 days to visit her mother. The lovers had decided to take the opportunity to meet and consummate their relationship. The only thing standing in their way was me. They weren't sure how they could spend the night together if I was still around. Since I wasn't leaving town, it would be almost impossible. They were mulling over all sorts of plans. One of them was to tell me that Sherry was going on a girls-only trip for the weekend. She was afraid I'd talk to one of her friends and find out the truth. She didn't want to bring in anyone to create a viable cover story, so the idea was dropped. Then they thought about forcing me to leave town. I laughed bitterly, remembering how Sherry had suggested I organize a golf trip with my buddies. I wasn't interested, which shot that option down too. Finally, they came up with a new but direct approach: honesty. Todd believed that I was a cuckold in the making and that I would do anything to keep Sherry as my loving, happy wife, including letting her have an affair with another man. Somehow he led Sherry to believe that by sleeping with him, she would help improve our sex life and our relationship. He convinced her that all she had to do was tell me what she planned to do with Todd, and I would give in and let her do it. Obviously, the asshole didn't know me, but what surprised me the most was that Sherry bought into his bullshit. She should have known there was no way I would tolerate this. If she doesn't realize that, then she's mentally unstable. Sloan told me that was all they had, so I took what he gave me and went home. I asked him to keep monitoring Sherry's messages and to let me know if anything changed. On Friday, Sloan called me and told me that Sherry was going to meet with me the following Monday after work. She was going to tell me that she was going to go on a date with Todd on Friday night. This date started with dinner and dancing. but ended with the couple spending the night in a hotel room having sex until they passed out. She had the foresight to return to my house on Saturday, or maybe Sunday, depending on how much sex they'd had. Sherry and Todd rehearsed her entire speech and convinced themselves that I would accept her demands. They knew I'd be upset, even angry at first, but Sherry was going to assure me that this was just a one-time thing, even though they both knew it wasn't. She tried to tell me that she would have sex with me later as a reward for my understanding. Realizing that Sherry and I hadn't had it in months, she assumed that I would be so happy to have sloppy seconds of Todd that I would acquiesce to her wishes. How nice of them to think of my needs. I only had 2 days to prepare for the confrontation. Sherry and Todd jokingly called it an intervention. I'll be damned if it would go the way she envisioned. I decided that I would turn their intervention into my ban. I spent the weekend going through scenario after scenario, trying to figure out what I was going to do and how I could fix my marriage. First, I had to decide if I wanted to fix it. I wasn't sure I knew. As I thought about how I felt about Sherry, my plan of action evolved organically. I decided to deal with it directly and end it for good. When we first got married, Sherry and I seemed blissfully happy. We spent all our time together sharing everything we had experienced in life. She was my best friend and my best lover. Somehow it all seemed to disappear. Maybe that's just the way things work. Nothing lasts forever. Perhaps my view of marriage was rather old-fashioned and idealized. I thought we would be a team, going through life together, fighting side by side against the trials and tribulations that would befall us. Sherry and I had been married before, but unsuccessfully. If that marriage failed too, maybe the problem wasn't us. Maybe it was the institution of marriage itself. How can people expect to maintain feelings, desires, interests, and passions when fate insists on being fickle and finding ways to change everything and everyone? In a world of 30-second sound bites, fast-paced culture, social media, and instant gratification, perhaps marriage, like dinosaurs and CDs, is obsolete. I thought, if Sherry wants to be with Todd, maybe I should just let her. Then I woke up and came to my senses. There's no way in hell I'm going to let her toot my horn. I may not want her anymore, but I'll be damned if I'm going to let Todd get the upper hand on me by claiming rights to my wife. To hell with it. I was ready for a fight when my wife called me just after lunch on Monday. "Hey, Sherry," I began. "Is everything okay? You never call me at work anymore. I hope everything is okay." "Hi, honey," she replied. Honey? Really? Did she use that epithet toward Todd, too? "It's no big deal. I just wanted to make sure you'd be home on time tonight. I need to talk to you about something very important, so I need you to be there." "Oh, okay," I replied, and added, "Yeah, that's good, because I have some important news for you, too. I have to be home at 5:15 or so. Will that be okay?" She didn't answer right away. When she asked that, it was only to get information. "Big news? What kind?" she asked. "I'll tell you tonight," I said, and decided to end the conversation. "I'm right in the middle of my monthly report. I need to get it done so I can leave on time. I'll see you at home." I hung up the phone and walked down the hall to my boss's office to let him know I was taking the rest of the day off. He didn't mind, and that was good. I had a few things I needed to prepare for the ban. I was sitting at the kitchen table when I heard the garage door open at 5:27. I was nervous, but also very angry. I was trying my best to remain outwardly calm while unbridled emotions raged inside me. I had an open bottle of Sauvignon Blanc on ice and 2 glasses at the ready. 2 minutes later, the door opened and Sherry walked in alone, tossing her keys and purse on the table. I was glad she hadn't brought Todd with her. That would have complicated things. I smiled. "Hi, honey," I said, repeating the affectionate expression she'd used during the day. "Welcome home. Do you need some time before we talk, or do you want to get right to the point?" She was taken aback by my immediate desire to talk. I think she assumed we'd get to it eventually and wasn't ready for it so quickly. I wasn't going to let her get the upper hand. I wanted to keep her in suspense and keep her unprepared. She had everything she planned to do and say worked out in detail, so I had to be as disruptive as possible. I didn't expect you to sit here and wait, but yeah, I think the sooner we get started, the sooner we can get on with our evening," Sherry said, coming over and sitting down across from me. "If you don't mind, I'll tell you my news first. Do you mind?" I asked, rather insistently. No, she said hesitantly. It's okay. Well, would you like a glass of wine? I asked. I didn't wait for her answer. I poured us both a glass and put one in front of her. Yeah, that would be great, she said with a sigh, lifting the glass and drinking half of it. I refilled her glass as soon as she set it down. So this is something I've been thinking about a lot, I began. I'm not going to beat around the bush. There's no point in dragging this out. I paused, deliberately trying to create tension. It worked. Sherry stepped forward and stared at me. What's the matter? She asked. I want a divorce, I stated bluntly, and waited for her to get the message. It took about 3 seconds. Sherry's face gave away her thoughts and emotions. First, she was confused, as if she didn't understand the words I was saying. Then it came to her what I had said, and she was shocked. Fear and anxiety were quickly replaced by surprise. She was afraid that I might find out about her affair with Todd. Why? She asked, afraid of the answer. I don't love you anymore, I said. It looked as if I had stabbed Sherry in the chest. You what? She asked, struggling with my statement. I've fallen out of love with you, Sherry. I don't remember exactly when I stopped loving you, I lied. I knew exactly when. It was so long ago. I tried to ignore it as long as I could, but lately I've been finding it harder and harder not to face it. What are you talking about? She asked me. She looked like she was about to cry. I was surprised by her reaction. Do you remember when we first got married? I asked. Remember how we spent all our free time together? If we went anywhere, a store, a movie, the mall, anywhere, we did it together. It was like we couldn't bear to be apart. She nodded. I remember, Sherry said. We both had jobs, but we made a special effort to have lunch at least twice a week, and we couldn't wait until work was over so we could rush home and be together. I missed you so much every day and looked forward to coming home, kissing you and more often than not making love to you. We had hobbies in common. You made me take those stupid pottery classes with you. Do you know how much I loved doing it with you? I thought you hated pottery, Sherry said, looking at me intently. It wasn't about the pottery. It was about sharing the experience with you, I told her. I loved every minute of it. I loved watching you do it and helping you. I loved your enthusiasm. It was the same with painting those darned Christmas Village buildings. We bought about a dozen of those little unpainted little houses that we painted together to make a display for Christmas. It was tedious, but we enjoyed it. Yours were always better than mine, Sherry said. Remember how many nights we spent together at the table applying paint to the shingles? Sherry nodded again. I loved you so much back then. We also spent hour after hour painting those big posters you picked up on your trip to Myrtle Beach. That was long before adult coloring books were in vogue. We still have hundreds of those coloring pens. But like our love, they've all dried up. Sherry visibly shrank. My love hasn't dried up, she parried defensively. I ignored her and continued. All our friends talked about how jealous they were of us. We did everything together. We took long walks every day, holding hands. If I needed to run to the hardware store to tuck in the weed trimmer line, you would come with me. If you wanted to go shopping for clothes, I'd drag myself after you and wait outside the locker room. Yeah, but you hated it, she challenged me. You'd be on your phone all the time. You wouldn't look at the clothes with me. I didn't care what you chose. I thought you were beautiful in everything. I was there to be with you. I could have stayed home and watched sports. We talked about how other women in the neighborhood would get together to play bingo or have bachelorette parties, but you never wanted to go. Remember what you told me about why you didn't participate? Sherry wiped a tear from her cheek. Yes, I remember. You said you didn't want to hang out with the chickens when you could hang out with me instead. Many nights we cuddled under the covers and watched You're Getting Mail. I love that movie, Sherry said, holding back tears. We must have watched it at least 100 times, I said, filling her glass again. I still want to watch it with you, Sherry exclaimed. I don't want to get divorced. I thought we'd grow old together, take cooking lessons, take ballroom dancing lessons, or just lie in bed and read books. Anything as long as we were with each other. But we're estranged from each other, Sherry. I don't know exactly when it started, I said, looking intently into my wife's eyes. We went from eating out 2 or 3 days a week to eating out weekly. Sherry was the credit for that. She once told me that she didn't have time to eat lunch so often outside of the office. That was a lie. She still ate outside, only she chose to do it with someone else. And then, before I knew it, we stopped eating lunch together altogether. I started joining my coworkers at lunch. Over time, I found myself enjoying their company, perhaps even too much. I exaggerated, but I tried my best not to put the blame on Sherry. I didn't want to make her get defensive and start fighting back. This conversation could go bad very quickly or turn into a scolding. That wasn't my goal, at least not yet. And then coming home early to spend time with each other stopped being so important. We worked later and later. When we finally did get home, we were often distant or distracted. "Why didn't you ever talk about this?" Sherry asked. "If I had known it was important to you, I would have tried to have lunch with you more often or not work so late." "You're right," I said, agreeing with her, even though I'd said it many, many times. "I wish I could understand why it wasn't important for you to be with me. Maybe if I had, I could have changed or done something to make you want to spend more time with me. I think I failed in that regard. I felt like I was taking responsibility for our estrangement. That was far from the truth. I knew that if I hit Sherry with Todd first, we couldn't end the discussion without it getting nasty. I would never make her see my side of things. I'd be the controlling, jealous asshole. Before I revealed what I knew, I wanted her to remember what we had and think about her role in destroying it. Gradually, we stopped doing almost everything together. You started going to your bachelorette parties. I started going to poker nights. You'd go to spas on the weekends. I'd go golfing. Sherry, we could go all day without talking about the weather or the latest news. Our sex life began to suffer as well. Often we were too tired or not in the mood. When we first got married, we couldn't tear ourselves away from each other. We had sex 4 or 5 days a week, often several times a day. I'd fondle you while you cooked, and we'd skip dinner and sleep through the night. We'd go to the hot tub all the time, having fun all the time. We haven't gotten in a hot tub in over a year. "I thought you didn't want sex anymore," Sherry objected. "I have no idea where she got that idea. I think she was justifying her behavior by trying to make it my fault." "Oh God, no," I said with a chuckle. "I never stopped wanting sex. I'm just as horny now as I was 10 years ago. I just stopped wanting sex with you." I knew that would hurt deeply. She thought she had rejected me sexually, and here I was telling her that our lack of sex was because I didn't want her. I almost would have laughed if I hadn't been so hurt. "What?" Sherry asked in a broken voice. I don't think she expected me to say that. "You didn't want to have sex with me?" "I lost all interest," I said absent-mindedly. "You were a cold fish. You just laid there. You never wanted to do anything exciting or even remotely naughty. It seemed to me that you wanted to get it over with soon so you could get back to something more interesting, like knitting. All the while, I still wanted weekend sex marathons like I used to. Hell, you didn't even want me to give you pleasure." She stared at me for a few moments. Her tears had dried and her face was flushed. I wasn't sure if it was from anger, frustration, or embarrassment. I refilled her empty glass. She took it and took a big sip. "It was only a matter of time," I continued, "before we started looking for someone else we wanted to spend time with. I didn't mean me, but she didn't know that." "Are you cheating on me?" she suddenly asked angrily. "Are you in love with someone else?" "Sherry, you know how I feel about infidelity. I made a vow to you when we got married, and I take that vow seriously. I know your first husband cheated on you, just like my first wife slept with a coworker behind my back. I would never do that to you, just as I know you would never stoop so low as to try to antagonize me by screwing another man. How could you think I would do that?" "I'm sorry," she apologized. "You're right. I know you wouldn't do that." She looked guilty and couldn't meet my gaze. Her hands were shaking. "Let's wait until after the divorce to sleep together for the first time," I stated, clearly hinting that I had a new love interest. Which brings me back to my big news. I've already met with my lawyer and finalized the paperwork. You should be served on Friday. "Wait, what?" she asked, getting desperate. "I told you that you'll be served with divorce papers on Friday," I said, trying not to smile. "It's for the best. That way you can get your freedom back and do what you want, and so can I. We can admit that the last 10 years have been a waste of our time and move on." "They weren't a waste of time for me." "Come on, Sherry," I said. "I think you want this as much as I do. I mean, let's be real. You haven't wanted to be with me in a long time. Our wedding was a mistake. I'm not the person you want to be with. No, you're not, she objected. I don't want a divorce. You can't get a divorce just because you want one. I don't want to divorce you. I want to be married to you. Forever. I love you. I'm sorry, Sherry, but I don't love you anymore. This is a no-fault divorce state, so we can just split all the assets 50-50. I mean, it's remotely possible to get more than half of the assets, but that's only if one of us cheats and we can absolutely prove cheating. But none of us cheat and are unlikely to do so before Friday, right? So we can make a clean break. I'd like you to come with me to the bank tomorrow so we can divide the money from all our accounts equally. We'll have to open new accounts, get new credit cards, and change all the utility bills, and we'll have to sell the house. I have a realtor coming on Wednesday to put it on the market. Wait! You're in too much of a hurry! Sherry yelled. I don't know what to do. Please stop! She cried again. Don't worry. I've already packed my things, and I'll be staying in a hotel room until I can move permanently. You can stay here until the house is sold. Wait! Damn it! Sherry shouted. Please wait! There's no need to wait, I said. Right? We don't have to put this off any longer. I mean, we have to take care of everything before Friday, don't we? Why? What's so damn important about Friday? She asked demandingly. Well, Friday's the day you go on a date with your boyfriend Todd, right? Isn't that the day you two plan to spend the night in a hotel together and party all night? Sherry froze. Her eyes seemed about to pop out of her orbits. Her mouth was open like a dying fish. She tried to say something, but all that came out of her throat was a hiss. Did I have the wrong day? Wait, I said, pulling a folder from under a stack of Better Homes and Gardens magazines and opening it. I pulled out a sheet of the private investigator's summary report and slipped it between us and showed it to Sherry. I pointed to the part about her plans to screw Todd on Friday night. No, I'm right. See, it says here that you and Todd made reservations at the Gaylord, Texas for Friday night. That's not... She started, but I cut her off. It's not what it looks like? I asked her, finishing the sentence after her. Oh, do I need to show you the pictures of you and Todd kissing at lunch? She stared at me and the tears flowed again. I'm sorry, she said quietly. Now I remember exactly when I stopped loving you, I said with a wide smile on my face. I stopped loving you the day I found out that you were planning to turn me into a cuckold with your coworker, just like my ex-wife. I'm sorry, honey, she blurted out, trying desperately to convince me. I don't love Todd. This is just going to be a fling, something to rekindle our relationship. I'll spend the night with him, and then you and I will spend the rest of the weekend having hot sex like we used to. Todd said you'd love it, that it would turn you on and revitalize our sexuality. Yeah, that's right. Revitalize our sex life. Instead of having sex with me, you're revitalizing things by having someone else. Does that make sense? No, but, She couldn't even get the phrase out. She changed tactics. Todd said you'd do it if you wanted me to be happy. I want you to be happy, I said. I want you to be happy with me like you once were. I don't want you to be happy with another man. Are you out of your mind or what? How could you think I'd be okay with that? You should know how I feel about infidelity. Yes, but... She tried to find some way to justify her actions. It wouldn't be infidelity. I wouldn't cheat. You will give me your permission. Not in this life, I said. I know that now. I should have realized it from the beginning. I don't know what I was thinking. I guess I was bored and lonely. Todd turned me on again. Bored and lonely? How could you be bored and lonely when we were happily in love and enjoying all our time together? I don't know, but... She started again. Did you ever think you were bored and lonely because you cut us off? You stopped having lunch with me? You stopped spending time with me and doing things with me? You chose to avoid me and put yourself in that position. You chose to spend time with him instead of me. So if you were bored and lonely, you created this condition specifically so that Todd could get rid of the boredom and loneliness. I don't think I did that, she said, staring at me. She shook her head. No, I can't believe I would do that. I thought you stopped coming to my house for lunch. Because you told me to. Don't you remember? You kept telling me you were too busy. And then one Wednesday, the day of our lunch, I picked you up, and you didn't even bother to come to the lobby and tell me you couldn't come. You texted me to go to lunch without you. After that, I stopped coming over, and you never even mentioned that we stopped having lunch. I don't think you even realized it. Sherry looked at her hands. You were so absorbed in your world that you didn't realize you were losing me. You were all about you and Todd. Well, you can have him now. I don't want him, she snapped at me, looking up at me. I want you. I want us. I want us to be the way we used to be. I'm so sorry. I screwed up. I gave up on us. It's too late, I said, shaking my head. You can't think like that. I didn't cheat on you. We didn't do anything. I won't see him again. I swear. I'll quit my job. I'll go work somewhere else. Please. I don't want to lose you. I still love you. You've cheated on me in every way but one. But that's the most important thing. We didn't have sex. I was stupid. I was crazy about Todd. I didn't love him. I've always loved only you. I don't know what I was thinking. I would have gotten over him and come back to you as soon as I got rid of it. But it's over now. I can see it now. I know it. It was stupid. I was stupid. Todd means nothing to me. Please, baby, please, don't leave me. It's not that simple, Sherry. Why can't it be? I screwed up. I did it. But you stopped me before I went too far. You did go too far, I disagreed. Just sex would have sealed the deal. I didn't do anything. We were just friends, she exclaimed. You should have been friends with me more than anyone else, I objected. I have a lot of girlfriends. I don't kiss them. I've never wasted time on them. I've never replaced you with them, and I never plan to fuck them and make you take it. Sherry dropped her head in her arms, sobbing. I'll never neglect you again and take you for granted. I swear it. Please, can't we treat this as a big mistake? Can't you forgive me and give me another chance? This isn't fucking Monopoly where you can get jail from a free card, I told her. You didn't just make a big mistake. You left our love and gave your heart to another man. No, he never had my heart. My heart was always yours. And you were going to give him your body? But I didn't. You stopped me. Damn it, don't you love me enough to fight for me? Do I mean so little to you? You meant everything to me. I'd fight anyone for you. I'd die for you. Now I wouldn't piss on you even if you were on fire. Sherry let out a piercing scream. She grabbed my hands and tried to pull me to her. No, please. You can't think like that. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. You have to believe me. I think you're sorry, I said. It shows me that you're not exactly a self-centered, heartless bitch. Then can you give me another chance? Please, I'm begging you. Please don't leave me. I'm not leaving you, Sherry. You did this on your own. I truly believe you're sorry. Maybe someday I can forgive you, but it doesn't change anything. I don't love you anymore. It's over. But don't worry, you always have Todd to comfort you. Todd is married? She said through her sobs. He only wanted to fuck me. He didn't want a relationship. I grinned. Well, he might change his mind now. I'm sure his wife had something to say to him when he got home today. She and I used the same divorce attorney. Sherry's jaw dropped again. I pushed a folder across the table to her. The full investigator's report is here, along with pictures of you and Todd. His wife has a copy. Also in there is all the information from my attorney about the divorce and how we propose to divide the property. I suggest you read the whole thing. No, baby, please, she pleaded. Don't do that. If you want to come to the bank with me tomorrow, call me and let me know. I got up from the table and walked out of the house, ignoring the sound of my wife crying. Epilogue. Sherry was struggling with the divorce. I didn't want a protracted and expensive legal battle. So when the judge suggested I see a marriage counselor, I agreed. The counseling helped more than I expected. Sherry and I got in touch with our feelings. We communicated about everything, openly and without judgment. She was able to understand why she had fallen victim to Todd's advances and almost lost me and our marriage. I was able to explain my pain and the humiliation she had caused me. The counselor was proud of our progress. After a few sessions, I returned to the house. We had hot sex several times. Sherry was very willing to do anything I wanted sexually. A year later, we were back to being the loving couple we were when we first got married. Sherry changed jobs and now worked for my company. We commuted to and from work together and every day. We didn't do it because we felt obligated or controlled. We did it because we wanted to be together. In fact, we did almost everything together. We put up a little Christmas tree and finished painting 2 pictures we had given up on years ago. We enrolled in another ceramics class and signed up for ballroom dancing. I even found a box of all the colored pens. Much to my surprise, They weren't dry after all. One night, as we were cuddled under a blanket eating popcorn and watching You've Got Mail, Sherry kissed me and said, "Honey, I need to talk to you about something important." I saw tears come to her eyes. I felt my heart skip a beat and I started to panic. Before I could say anything, Sherry continued, "You're going to be a daddy." I smiled and wiped the tears from her cheek, saying in my best Tom Hanks accent, "Don't cry, Sellers. Good. So I'm just obsessed with happy endings. Sue me."